Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar presentation on Ohio EPA's Drinking Water Treatment Material Beneficial Use Surface Water Systems General Permit. My name is Helen Miller with the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance here at Ohio EPA, and I will be moderating this afternoon's presentation with Ohio EPA's Harry Sarvis and Megan Ubari. We're going to start today's webinar off with a live poll. So our poll questions are, who is attending our webinar today? Are you a public water system, a contractor, distributor? Are you a farmer? Or are you in the other category?
All right, that looks like about it. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results.
Okay, thank you for participating. And it looks like we have a great number of public water systems attending at 71%. We have 10% contractors or distributors, 5% farmers, and 17% others. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started here. And with that, I'm going to pass off the microphone here to Harry Sarvis.
Thank you, Helen. My name is Harry Sarvis, and I am the manager of Ohio EPA's Beneficial Use Program. On behalf of Ohio EPA, I would like to welcome you to this webinar on our recently issued general permit for the beneficial use of drinking water treatment material as a replacement for lime on agricultural fields that is generated from surface water sourced drinking water treatment plants. After my opening remarks, Megan Ubari of our Beneficial Use Group will present the rest of the webinar. Along with Megan, Mara Flynn and Phil Shirosky of my staff are here to answer any questions you may have during this webinar. I would like to now briefly go over the agenda of today's presentation. First, we will give a background history to the beneficial use of drinking water treatment material in the state of Ohio, specifically dealing with Ohio EPA. In this background presentation, we will also talk about our recently issued beneficial use rules and how they result in the general permit that we're talking about today. Next, we will go over specific criteria that need to be demonstrated by the applicant in order to obtain coverage under this general permit. There are a number of specific criteria that need to be demonstrated, and Megan will cover those in some detail during the presentation. I want to briefly highlight three of them here. First is the need to make a determination that your drinking water treatment material is not a hazardous waste. While we believe that most, if not all, drinking water treatment material is not a hazardous waste, our rules require that a demonstration be made that it is not a hazardous waste prior to allowing it to be land applied under our beneficial use program. Megan will point out a very straightforward way in which you can make this determination. Next is the issue of microcystins. The general permit has set a certain limit for the amount or the presence of microcystin within your drinking water treatment material in order to be eligible for coverage under this general permit. Again, Megan will talk about what those levels are, as well as how to go about sampling your drinking water treatment material for microcystins. In addition, there's also a requirement to representatively sample your drinking water treatment material for the presence of other constituents of concern, specifically metals that are commonly present in drinking water treatment material. Again, Megan will cover different ways that you can sample your drinking water treatment material and how to go about demonstrating that your drinking water treatment material meet the concentration limits set forth in the general permit. We will then discuss specific operating conditions that are found in the general permit that deal with the beneficial use of your drinking water treatment material. Specifically, when it comes to placing the drinking water treatment on the land on agricultural fields as a replacement for lime, we have identified specific conditions related to protecting waters of the state, rivers and streams and ponds and the such. And so Megan will cover the specific conditions associated with the land application of your drinking water treatment material. Our general permit also allows for the temporary storage of drinking water treatment material at the site where it will ultimately be beneficially used. There are specific conditions associated with that temporary storage, which we will cover in this presentation. And then finally, there are certain record keeping requirements that we have placed into this general permit. And Megan will cover those in the presentation as well. And then finally, we will cover what needs to be included in a complete application package in order to obtain coverage under this general permit. This will include a notice of intent for coverage form, or as we refer to it, an NOI form. It will include a sampling plan. It will include your analytical data and your liming license from the Ohio Department of Agriculture, just to name a few. And again, in our presentation, we will go over everything that needs to be included in your application package. At the end, as Helen mentioned, we will have time for questions and answers. If, as Helen mentioned, we do not get to answer your question during that time or throughout the webinar, we will contact you by email after this webinar to respond to your questions. So with that as an introduction, I will now turn over the presentation to Megan.
Thanks, Harry. So we are going to start with another quick poll question. And the first poll question here is going to be, do you currently have a DWTM general permit? Yes or no?
All right, that looks like about it. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Dan. So it looks like 26% say yes, they do have a DWTM general permit. 74% say they do not. Beneficial use. Beneficial use involves the substitution of secondary materials for some or all virgin or raw materials in a natural or commercial product. It provides a functional benefit and meets product specifications. It does not constitute disposal. It does not cause pollution of any waters of the state, and it does not pose concerns to human health or the environment. History of DWTM beneficial use. Beneficial use of drinking water treatment material was previously under the Division of Surface Water. The approval was through a sludge management plan or a land application management plan. Not all public water systems had an authorization for land application. Why beneficial use rules and why now? In 2017, Ohio EPA issued rules for the beneficial use of certain waste materials, including DWTM. There were a number of reasons for developing and issuing these rules. There has been a desire to legitimize beneficial use and remove the stigma of waste. We also wanted to streamline the process for authorization and create a clearer and more consistent program. Lastly, Ohio EPA wanted to promote legitimate beneficial uses, resulting in diversion of materials from landfills and preservation of raw materials. Overview of beneficial use authorizations. Our rules allow for the beneficial use of 4 waste materials: DWTM, boundary sand, sewage sludge incinerator ash, and Lake Erie dredge through the following authorizations: general permit, individual permit, and authorization by rule. General permits are created for common uses of high volume, low toxicity materials like drinking water treatment material, iron and aluminum foundry sands, sewage sludge incinerator ash, and Lake Erie dredge. Qualifying criteria, permit conditions, and uses for the materials are predefined in general permits and cannot be customized or altered. Individual permits are available for these same 4 waste materials if the applicant desires permit conditions that are different from the general permits. Permittees can submit an individual permit application and request alternative beneficial uses for these materials. DMWIM will work with the applicant to create a site-specific permit that works for them. The beneficial use rules do not specify analytical standards or usage limits. All requirements are included in the permit as opposed to being in the rules. Each permit contains constituent limits such as US EPA regional screening levels and US EPA 503 pollutant concentrations and leaching limits. Most beneficial use permits are issued for 5 years and can be renewed. Authorizations approved by rule are for wastes that are encapsulated into a product such as a concrete or brick and do not require a permit. Who is the permittee? In general, the permittee is the individual that applies for coverage under a general permit by submitting a notice of intent, or NOI. This can be the generator or public water system, a distributor, such as a contractor or hauler, or the end user, such as the farmer. And we're going to go ahead and do another poll question here. The question is, when applying for the DWTM general permit, who can be the permittee? The generator, the distributor, the end user, or any of the above?
All right, that looks like about it. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Dan. So it looks like 13% of you said the generator, 2% said the distributor, 2% said the farmer, and 88% said any of the above. The correct answer is any of the above. So like we just discussed, anyone in the process from the generator to the end user can apply and hold the general permit for land application of DWTM. What if I don't want to use my DWTM as a liming material under this general permit? This general permit is not mandatory. This permit is only for those who want to beneficially use DWTM as a liming material on agricultural fields. If you do not want to beneficially use your DWTM, you can dispose of it at a landfill. DWTM can also be incorporated into concrete or other construction materials identified in our beneficial use rules, specifically in OAC Rule 3745-599-10. If your DWTM does not meet eligibility requirements of this general permit, or if you want to use the DWTM in a different manner, such as an ingredient in a soil blend or structural fill, you can apply for an individual beneficial use permit. The application for an individual permit can be found on the beneficial use webpage. Please note, key hyperlinks to these elements were provided in the webinar announcement you received last month, and they're also on our website. Beneficial use individual permit. For materials and uses we are not as familiar with, you can apply for an individual permit using one of the same 4 materials that we have general permits for: drinking water treatment material, spent foundry sand, dredge, or sewage sludge incinerator ash. An individual permit allows for the uses and constituent levels to be tailored to your specific use or site. The applicant must submit an application for a beneficial use individual permit and a $350 application fee. Ohio EPA will review the application and work with the applicant when drafting the conditions in the permit, such as the compliance demonstration, best management practices, and record keeping and reporting conditions. What if I do want to use my DWTM as a liming material under this permit? If you want to use DWTM as a liming material under this permit, and you have an expired DWTM general permit, you will need to apply for coverage under the general permit. If you apply for coverage, you will be able to operate under this general permit immediately while we review your application. If you have a valid lamp or beneficial use individual permit, once it expires, you will need to apply for coverage under the general permit. If you have an expired lamp permit or a sludge management plan, you will need to apply for coverage under the general permit now. If you do not have any previous permits, you will also need to apply for coverage under the general permit. DWTM general permit eligibility criteria. There are 4 significant criteria that determine eligibility for coverage under the general permit. The DWTM must be from a surface water source water treatment plant. The DWTM cannot be a hazardous waste. The DWTM cannot exceed a total microsistence concentration of more than 180 micrograms per liter. And the DWTM cannot exceed any of the metal concentration limits specified in Table 1 of the general permit. We will be covering these in more detail throughout the presentation. Hazardous waste determination. The beneficial use rules exclude the use of hazardous waste. Therefore, a determination needs to be made that the DWTM is not a hazardous waste. There are a couple of ways to make this determination, which are explained in our guidance document. We recommend that the public water systems use generator knowledge to demonstrate that the DWTM is not a hazardous waste. This can be accomplished by identifying which materials and chemicals are used in the drinking water treatment process. If there isn't a substantial change in the treatment process as defined in the drinking water regulations, you will not be required to make this demonstration again, even if you apply for the next generation of this general permit 5 years from now. Microsistence evaluation. Public water systems using a surface water source must evaluate for microsistence in the DWTM. Evaluate your compliance sampling results since the last time the containment area or lagoon was emptied. Microsistence compliance sampling data can be obtained from the public water system, or you can find the data on Ohio EPA's Public Water System Emerging Contaminant website. If you need assistance obtaining compliance sampling results, please call 614-644-2752 and ask to speak with somebody in the Emerging Contaminant section. If you have had a microsistence detection, you must sample the DWTM in the lagoons for microsistence. After issuance of coverage, you will need to sample for microsistence again only if you have a microsistence detection that is higher than the previous detection. Microsistence analysis was not mandatory for public water systems until July 1st, 2016. So DWTM in a lagoon filled prior to July 1st, 2016 will need to be sampled for total microsistence, even if there has been no microsistence detections. How do I sample? In order to representatively sample for metals in your DWTM, you can either sample the DWTM as generated or sample the DWTM in your lagoon. When sampling for total metals, you may representatively sample the DWTM as it is generated before it is discharged to the DWTM containment area. This method of collecting samples is highly recommended if you have not had a detection of microcystins in your compliance sampling since the last time you emptied your containment area. To collect samples of DWTM as it is generated, you will need to collect enough volume of DWTM so that there are 100 grams of solid DWTM material available for the total metals analysis. You can collect 1 to 2 samples per week for 1 month until you have 4 to 8 samples to analyze for total metals. If you have a detection of microcystins, you need to sample from the lagoon. But if you have not sampled for metals, you can collect the samples at the same time. In the DWTM guidance document, we provided hypothetical examples of how to representatively sample lagoons containing DWTM. In these examples, we highlight how to grid a lagoon and identify each section and take at least 1 sample per section. Please note that you may want to take more than 1 sample per section in the event that you need additional analytical data. For microcystins, you can follow the same lagoon sampling protocol as for metals, or you can take a minimum of at least 1 representative sample per lagoon. If you would like us to review and provide input on your sampling plan prior to sampling and submitting your notice of intent, email or call the beneficial use group and we will provide technical assistance. How do I analyze for microcystins? Ohio EPA developed an analytical method of testing for microcystins in DWTM. This method is based on the same ELISA method used for drinking water compliance monitoring and is located on the Ohio EPA's beneficial use webpage. This method can be performed by a lab certified in the microcystins ELISA method by Ohio EPA. The list of certified labs is referenced in the DWTM guidance document located on the Ohio EPA's beneficial use webpage. In addition, we've identified several other testing methods and will accept results from those methods. These additional testing methods are listed on our website under the DWTM General Permit tab. Please note that not all labs will be capable of conducting the percent solids analysis required as part of the method. Make sure to check with your lab first. How do I analyze for metals? In order to be eligible for coverage under this general permit, you will need to analyze the samples of DWTM you've obtained from your lagoon or the metals listed in Table 1, shown here, by determining the 95% upper confidence limit of the mean for each constituent listed on the table, and ensure the 95% UCL does not exceed the constituent concentration limits specified in Table 1. These standards came from several different regulatory programs, such as US EPA regional screening levels and US EPA 503 limits for land application of biosolids, and from interested party input received when we were drafting the beneficial use rules. As with the hazardous waste determination, if your water treatment process does not significantly change, this will be a one-time analysis for these metals. "95% UCL guidance document." We have a 95% UCL guidance document on our beneficial use webpage that offers more information on how to calculate the 95% UCL. For most beneficial use permits, the permittee is required to determine that the 95% UCL of the mean for each constituent in the beneficial use byproduct does not exceed its constituent concentration limit specified in the permit. DMWIM highly recommends using ProUCL to calculate the 95% UCL. ProUCL requires no formal background in statistics, but some statistical training is helpful to understand the assumptions and input requirements for statistical tests used in decision-making. Input datasets are straightforward, requiring columns of detected values for contaminants, and whether each value is a detect or a non-detect at the quantitation limit. Desired statistical tests can be selected from a drop-down menu and relevant options from subsequent menus. If the applicant types their data into a spreadsheet for us, we can run the results through ProUCL for you. Why these concentration limits? The concentration limits used in this general permit come from the US EPA RSLs. US EPA RSLs are risk-based standards that are protective for residential situations and therefore are acceptable levels for agricultural settings. We also use US EPA 503 levels for metals within biosolids. Because the 503 levels are considered to be protective for land application on farm fields, we believe these levels would be protective for the land application of DWTM onto farm fields as well. Additionally, using these standards, most, if not all, public water systems should be able to meet these concentration levels. We're going to go ahead and do another poll question here. And that question is true or false. In order to be eligible for the DWTM surface water general permit, you need to determine if you've had a detection of microcystins in your compliance sampling results since the last time you've emptied your lagoons.
All right, that looks like about it. So I'm going to close the poll, share the results, and back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Dan. So it looks like 98% selected true, 2% selected false. The answer is true. You do need to determine if you've had a detection of microcystins in your compliance sampling results since the last time you've emptied your lagoons to be eligible for a general permit to land apply your DWTM. Evaluate your compliance sampling results since the last time the containment area or lagoon was emptied. And if you've had a microcystins detection, then you need to sample your lagoon for microcystins. After issuance of coverage, you will need to sample for microcystins again, only if you have a microcystins detection that is higher than the previous detection. DWTM land application conditions. The general permit identifies several conditions associated with the land application of DWTM. These are considered best management practices and were adopted to be consistent with other land application authorizations. A number of these conditions address setback provisions. For example, DWTM cannot be applied within 300 feet from wells and surface waters used for drinking water. Other conditions address when DWTM can be land applied. For example, DWTM cannot be applied during a precipitation event, on saturated soil, or when the ground is frozen or snow covered. Additional land application conditions. When microcystins in the DWTM are greater than 20 micrograms per liter, we have identified additional conditions for land application to further minimize runoff to waters of the state. These conditions include not land applying within 100 feet of surface waters and limiting application of DWTM to subsurface drained fields. Since December 2018, when the first DWTM general permit was issued, No water treatment plant has exceeded a microsystence concentration of 20 micrograms per liter in any individual or general permit application. Microsystence concentration limits. Microsystence concentration cannot exceed 180 micrograms per liter at an application rate of 4 tons per acre. We've created a table that shows the minimum through maximum application rates of 4 to 12 tons per acre and the associated microsystence limits. For example, land application of 8 tons per acre may not have a microsystence concentration of more than 90 micrograms per liter. Note that a higher application rate will still require that the microsystence concentration be within the limits shown on this table. They cannot exceed these limits. Temporary storage. The general permit allows for the temporary storage of dewatered DWTM at the site where it will be land applied. There are additional operational conditions for storage which are included in the general permit. For example, DWTM cannot be stored within 300 feet of an occupied building unless approved in writing by the landowner, and if applicable, the resident of the occupied building. Any other type of storage, such as storing wet DWTM or storage for longer than 180 days, or a regional storage site, will require additional permitting through our Division of Surface Water. Record keeping. The general permit requires that the permittee retain certain records identified in the permit for up to 5 years. These records deal with specific operating conditions spelled out in the general permit. For example, the location of where the DWTM is stored, lended, or placed on the land, approval from the landowner and resident for DWTM storage within 300 feet of an occupied building, and a copy of your liming license issued by the Ohio Department of Agriculture. While these records do not need to be submitted to Ohio EPA, they need to be made available upon request. We will request and review your records on a periodic basis to maintain compliance. In addition, the permittee will need to submit an annual report by April 1st, indicating the amount of DWTM used for the previous year. Please note that you will need to submit an annual report even if you do not use any DWTM under this general permit during the previous year. Annual report form. We have recently developed an annual report form that we recommend permittees use when preparing and submitting their annual report each year. This form is located on our beneficial use webpage. In the near future, we hope to allow for permittees to electronically submit their annual reports. Application package. In order to obtain coverage under this general permit, you will need to submit in a notice of intent application. The application will need to include the following: a completed notice of intent form, documents demonstrating the DWTM is not a hazardous waste, microsystence evaluation for surface water systems, a copy of compliance sample results, a copy of your DWTM sampling plan, all laboratory results from the DWTM sampling, statistical analysis for metals evaluation, a copy of the liming license from the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and an application fee of $200. Notice of intent. So this is what our notice of intent form looks like. You can find it via our website by going to epa.ohio.gov. And once there, you'll navigate to the Division of Materials and Waste Management webpage. And then you want to go to the beneficial use webpage. Once there, you can scroll down to the Permits and Guidance Documents tab, and you'll find the Notice of Intent form. While there, you can also view the DWTM Surface Water Systems General Permit and the related guidance documents. ODA liming license. Here's a picture of the ODA liming license application that you'll need to fill out and submit if you do not yet have your liming license. The licensing period is from January 1st to December 31st each year. And you can find this form and related information on the Ohio Departments of Agriculture's Division of Plant Health in their fertilizer program. And if you do need assistance finding the form or submitting the form, you can also reach out to us and we can assist you with that. So we're going to go ahead and do another quick poll question here. And the question is going to be this. The application package should include the following: either completed NOI form, sampling plan, copy of the liming license from ODA, or all of the above.
All right, that looks like about it. So I'm going to close the poll, share the results, and back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Dan. So it looks like 2% selected a completed NOI form and 98% selected all of the above. The correct answer is all of the above. So when submitting your application, you'll need to be sure to include your completed NOI form, your sampling plan and analytical data, a copy of your liming license from ODA, and your check for the $200 application fee. Here is our contact information and web address for the beneficial use webpage. So if you need any assistance in developing your sampling plan or completing your application, please contact any one of the folks listed on this slide, and we will be more than happy to help you with any part of the application. And here is some additional contact information for other Ohio EPA subject matter experts. Colin White is the environmental manager for the emerging contaminants section in the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters. Aaron Shearer is an environmental manager in the Division of Surface Water and works with best management practices. And then Vandana Deshmukh is an environmental supervisor and works with lab methodology. And we are going to go ahead and do one final poll question. And while we are doing this poll question, if you have any other questions or comments, you can go ahead and submit them in the chat box. The poll question is going to be, do you think pineapple belongs on pizza? Yes, definitely, no way, or I've never tried it.
All right, it looks like most people have made their selection. So okay, it looks like the last vote just came in. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. Back to you, Megan.
Thank you, Dan. So it looks like 42% said yes, definitely, which is my preference. My favorite pizza is pineapple pizza. 46% said no way, and 13% said I've never tried it. Somewhat disappointing. All right, so if you do have any remaining questions or comments, go ahead and submit those, and we will take a look and see what questions have come in throughout the presentation now.
Hey, thank you, Harry and Megan. We're now going to go through the questions that have been submitted, and again, continue submitting questions. And if we don't get to them during this Q&A portion, We will follow up with you after the webinar. Our first question, can I use a different method for microsystems analysis other than what's listed in the general permit? Mira, would you like to tackle this one?
Sure, Helen, I'd love to answer that question. So in addition to the Ohio EPA DES method, ELISA method, that was created for the last general permit, now we can have people use a targeted microsystems LCMS method, the MMPB method, the UPLC with a photodiode array detector. All of these methods have advantages and disadvantages, as some methods will over-report the microsystems since they can represent partially degraded microsystems, and some of the methods may have matrix interferences like the ELISA. But the primary goal for this general permit is for the microsystems analysis to determine if your concentration is less than 20 micrograms per liter in the drinking water treatment material. And this is the threshold where the extra best management practices and record keeping requirements will kick in. So you will definitely want to choose a method that will help you achieve that goal. Then the next obvious goal in order to qualify for the permit is for the DWTM to be less than 180 micrograms per liter of microsystems if you were to land apply at 4 tons per acre. And since the science for analyzing drinking water treatment material containing microsystems is still developing, we recommend that you contact the beneficial use group prior to analyzing for assistance in choosing a method that's best suited for your public water system. And if there's a microsystems method that you would like to use that is not currently approved, please share this method with the beneficial use group so that we can evaluate the use of this for the DWTM permit. And there will be a guidance document on the beneficial use webpage called Draft Approved Microsystems Analysis Guidance for DWTM on our webpage.
Hey, thank you, Mira. Next question is, does the permit holder need to have a liming license? Typically, our contractor holds the license. Harry, would you like to take this question?
Sure, Helen. For purposes of obtaining coverage under this general permit, it does not matter who has the liming, who obtains the liming license from the Ohio Department of Agriculture, whether it's the public water system or whether it would be the contractor, the hauler, the land applier. We've built in flexibility into our beneficial use program for this purpose, because what we have seen historically is, in some cases, the public water system has applied for the liming license and has applied for coverage under either recently a general permit or historically under a land application management plan permit. On the flip side, we have also seen situations where it was the hauler who applies for the liming license, and recognize that the purpose of the liming license is to make that determination that the drinking water treatment material is, in essence, a substitute for lime. So whoever obtains it is not as important to us as that it has been obtained and submitted as part of the complete application package.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Next question is, where can I send my samples for analysis? Do I have to use a certified lab for the analysis? Mira, can you take that one?
Sure, Helen. So for the general permit, you do not need to use an Ohio EPA certified laboratory for the microsystems analysis. Now, at this time, I'm aware of at least 4 laboratories in Ohio that can analyze your drinking water treatment material for total metals and for microsystems. And these laboratories are the Alloway Laboratory in Marion, Ohio EPA's Division of Environmental Services Laboratory, the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District Lab, and the Ohio State University Soil, Water, and Environmental Laboratory. And these will be listed in our guidance document for the approved microsystems methods so that you can have the address.
Okay, our next question is, do I, as a public water system, need to get coverage under the general permit, or could I have my contractor get the coverage? Harry, could you answer that one?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Helen. This is a very important question, and a question that we do receive frequently, not just for this particular general permit, for other general permits that we have issued in the past. We developed the beneficial use rules in such a way that generally any person or entity could apply for coverage under the general permit. For example, the generator of the waste material that is being considered for beneficial use can apply for coverage. In this case, that would be the public water system. The distributor, the land applicator, in this case, perhaps your contractor or your hauler, could also apply for coverage under the general permit. And ultimately, the end user, the farmer, could also apply for coverage under this general permit. Now, historically, generally what we have seen is that it is primarily the public water systems who choose to apply for coverage under the general permit. And that could be for a number of reasons. One is that perhaps they have multiple haulers who land apply their drinking water treatment material, or they have farmers who come and remove the drinking water treatment material from their treatment plant and land apply it themselves. Or because this permit is for 5 years, a public water system may choose to want to have the flexibility if they have to put their contract out for the hauling and land application during that time period. So they want to have the flexibility that there won't be any delay in the new contractor, the new hauler land applying it. But we do see public water contractors and haulers apply for coverage under the general permit. So the simple answer is the generator, the hauler, the land applier, or the end user can apply for coverage.
Okay. If I'm a public water system and I'm the permit holder, but not the land applicator, we have a contractor do the land application. What exactly am I responsible for? Megan, can you take that question?
Yep. So if the permit holder is not the land applicator, they're still responsible for ensuring compliance of the conditions in the permit. So the permittee is responsible for all of the setback provisions for temporary storage and land application. And so the public water system is the permittee, but has a contractor who is land applying the material for them. They should make sure that the contractor is aware of all the setback conditions in the permit. So we recommend that you share the general permit with your contractor so they're familiar with the conditions in the general permit. And lastly, I just want to make a note too that the permittee is also responsible for providing Ohio EPA with any of the requested records. So if your contractor is making notes of those records for you, make sure that they are shared with you as well.
Okay, how do I know if my sampling and analysis plan is acceptable? I don't want to sample, submit my application, and then find out my plan is not correct. Mara, can you answer that, please?
Yes, I can answer that question. We strongly encourage everyone to send their sampling and analysis plan to us prior to applying for the permit so that we can review it and help you through answering any questions. And that way you won't have to worry if it was done correctly.
Okay. I think that's all the time we really have today. We have had a lot of questions come in, and we will be following up with you. Just be a little patient with us. It'll probably take a day or two to get back with you. But anyway, I'd like to wrap up the webinar here with thank you, Harry and Megan, for your great presentations. Check out our upcoming sessions. On July 20th, join us to learn about the variety of projects that can be funded through Ohio's Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. We'll also highlight special items of interest, such as principal forgiveness funding and loans for stormwater projects. Lastly, join us on the morning of July 29th to learn about the risk management program requirements for drinking and wastewater treatment plant superintendents and operators. CEUs are available for these webinars, and if you've missed past webinars or would like to register for these and upcoming webinars, check out our training tab at epa.ohio.gov/DEFA. You can also go to our training tab to subscribe to email notifications for future webinars. With that, we will end today's webinar, and thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.